UFC 294. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski 2. We got a really stacked card. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on it. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. And also note, I will be live for the entire UFC 294 fight card Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time start. Don't miss the fight, companion. And let's get into the first fight of the night. We have Bruno Silva versus Sharapudin Magomedov. I'm going to pick the side of Sharapudin Magomedov to beat Bruno Silva in his debut. The dude is absolutely terrifying. He has, like one eye that's white out, and he looks like a straight villain out of a movie. Now, he also has a pretty ferocious stand-up game, nasty kickboxing style, a lot of knockout wins, good kicks, good punches, pretty good combination striker, strings his shots together really well. Now, on the opposite side, though, like Bruno Silva is a heavy-handed striker who has a good kickboxing background in his own right, and in MMA has a lot of knockout wins. Granted, he's been catching some L's as of late. He's 1-3 out of his last 4. Granted, I mean, you can't knock the loss to Alex Pereira, and really you can't even knock the loss to Brendan Allen. But the Mearshart loss, where he got caught, dropped, and subbed, was somewhat embarrassing in my opinion. And I think that the side of Sharapudin Magomedov, I think he can knock out Bruno Silva too. I know he's got big potential. He's a master of sport over in Russia, with his striking being pretty A-tier. I'm curious to see him at this real top level. Bruno Silva is an extremely hard UFC debut, but I think that Sharapudin's going to win. He's a badass looking dude, and I think he's going to be a badass fighter in the UFC. He's very marketable. That villain category will do well with him inside of it. I think that you're able to push him a lot. If he's able to get these knockouts, if he has this menacing appeal, and his striking is slick, I think he can knock Bruno Silva out in this fight. So I'm going to go Sharapudin Magomedov by knockout. Now, as far as the betting side, Sharapudin is minus 205. Bruno Silva plus 175 is the dog. I'll tell you this. Sharapudin is unproven at a high level of MMA. He is a 2-1 favorite because he looks like an absolute badass from what we've seen. 11-0 as a pro. Nasty stand-up game versus Bruno Silva, who's kind of been on and off lately. He's 34 years of age. I think Shara Bullet can pull it off. He's a real-life villain, guys. He is. He's a monster. And I look forward to his villainous debut, and I think we got a fun guy to build. If he knocks out Bruno Silva in the fashion that I see it, emphatically, I really think he's a prospect on the fast track because he's got the look to really sell and, straight movie character type villain. Let's go Shara Bullet. Knockout win. Next fight on the card, ladies going after it, is Jinh Frey versus Victoria Dudakova. If Victoria Dudakova has any potential in the future, I think that she wins this fight over Jinh Frey. So yes, I'm picking Victoria Dudakova. With Jinh Frey, she's lost 3 in a row. She's 11-9 as a pro. It's a horrible record. At the end of the day, though, on the flip side, right, Dudakova was still mounted on Contender Series by Silva in that fight, and then her debut against Estela Nunes ends in like 30 seconds with Nunes' elbow dislocating. So it's not like, we've seen her in the UFC consistently. But what I do know about Dudakova is she does have a good pressure wrestling onslaught. She takes opponents down, and she controls them. Jinh Frey is a pretty physically strong girl and has a good Muay Thai base. I gotta pick Dudakova. I have to go with her to win, even though she's fought essentially nobody at a high level besides obviously Silva on the Contender Series. And, at the end of the day, she's in KSW now. It's Maria Silva. And Silva had moments against Dudakova. Jinh Frey, I think her strength makes this fight somewhat competitive, but like 11-9 record, 7-0. If Dudakova has any potential like it seems she does, she should win. The betting lines for this fight are terrible. I don't think Jinh Frey is a good underdog bet, but Dudakova is definitely not a good favorite bet. It's minus 410 for Dudakova. Frey is a plus 310 underdog. Dudakova probably wins. I see her getting to the clinch and tripping Jinh Frey. Though Frey does have the Muay Thai background, you're going to have to watch for knees and elbows inside of the clinch in close. Because Frey's pretty strong and she's got a bit of power. She's a southpaw too in the striking department. But I think Dudakova's going to put her on her ass for the most part. Now, looking at the losses, who Frey lost to, Elise Reed lost, which was close. Poliana Viana, who killed her in like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And then Vanessa Demopoulos, split decision that honestly could have went the way of Jinh Frey. I'm picking Dudakova by decision, but guys, I'm going to fucking write it down right now. Put a yellow flag on it. She's unproven, and the odds suck for the fight. Yes, Dudakova probably wins the decision, though. Dudakova for the W. I'm picking her. Next fight on the card. Nathaniel Wood versus Mohammad Naimov. I sat on this one for a little while. I did. I'm picking Nathaniel Wood, but Mohammad Naimov is not a bad underdog, and I'll tell you why. If you look at his last fight against Jamie Malarkey, who is a large 155er, Naimov has the power to put his lights out. Nathaniel Wood is a former bantamweight who did get a TKO loss to John Dodson some years ago. Naimov is not a bad underdog. Now, that being said, Nathaniel Wood, to me, better combination striker, more experienced, 19-5 versus 9-2. He's been fighting at a high level for a long time. Nasty low kicks, very good defensively, good recovery abilities too, especially at 145 pounds. A little bit undersized for the weight class at only 5'6", but makes up for it by having, slightly above average wingspan and a good ability to close the gap. Naimov hits really hard, and he has like a good high, tight guard, explosive striking style. He's a good kicker, but Nathaniel Wood, to me, just has more levels to his game. He's technically better, and I think that he should win it by decision. Naimov's going to be hard to put away, but Nathaniel Wood should get the win. I'm picking Wood to pull this thing off by a decision, but Mohammad Naimov does have a real puncher's chance because he hits really hard, and Nathaniel Wood was dropped by Andre Fili in the first minute of that fight. Granted, he went off to win that fight and have big moments there, but that was a really hard matchup with Fili. I think Wood gets this done on the cards too. I'm picking Wood. Wood is minus 330. Naimov plus 270. We got some ugly betting odds on this card. Holy shit. Wood should win, but if he gets clipped with a power strike, Naimov hits hard enough that he could put the lights out. But I really think Nathaniel Wood, he's too versatile with his game. He's too well-rounded. And I think he wins a unanimous decision. I can see 30-27. He picks Naimov apart here in this fight. I'm fading the OV in this one. And I'm going with my guy Nathaniel Wood to win. Next fight on the card, we have Anshul Jubli versus Mike Breeden. The pick is Anshul Jubli. I think they are setting this up as an absolute squash match. I don't think Mike Breeden should be in the UFC anymore. His 2 of his 3 losses are in a minute, and they didn't look good. Granted, Terrence McKinney's an absolute monster. It was, a bad KO, though. Like, he got ran over. And then Alexander Hernandez slept him, too. And then Natan Levy beat him on the cards. I'll say this about Natan Levy. He's really not a good finisher. He's a good technical fighter, and he controls fights well. He controls the pace well, but he's not a great finisher. I think Jubli does finish Mike Breeden. With Anshul Jubli, he's got a pretty decent stand-up game, good straight punches, and he works towards takedowns really well, which I think is going to be a nightmare for Mike Breeden. I think Jubli is going to put Breeden on his back, beat him up from top position, and beat him up to get a TKO ground and pound. I'm calling a TKO for Jubli. Could I see him getting a sub? Yes. Rear naked choke if Jubli's throwing some ground and pound and Breeden turns the back. I see him strangling him. Or potentially an arm triangle if, Jubli's in that half guard throwing some shots and he sets it up. Breeden might just give it to him. He's getting pounded out so bad. I think Jubli is going to swarm him. Now, Indian fighter on the roster, there's not many of them. Jubli, they got high hopes for him over there in India. I don't blame him. He's a 7-0 monster, and he's got good potential. Mike Breeden is a squash match. This is like a boxing matchup where it's like this guy's supposed to win, this guy's supposed to lose, and I don't think anything different happens. Jubli is a 4-1 favorite, minus 400. Breeden a plus 300 underdog. Yeah, I think Jubli's going to beat his ass, though. He's going to run him over. The tag actually makes a lot of sense here. I don't think Mike Breeden's UFC level. Jubli definitely is. He won the road to the UFC, and he's, getting a W there against a pretty dangerous guy in Sedriques, who was 13-2, had a fun striking style. Jubli's going to put Breeden on his back and beat him up. It's going to be Jubli all day long. He beats the 10-6 Mike Breeden, and we'll see what he can do moving forward. He's only 28, so a good amount of time to marinate this Indian prospect. But this matchup here, one-way traffic. It's not close. Next fight on the card, we got middleweights. Sedriques Dumas versus Abu Azaitar. Talk about like one of those weird matchups. Azaitar doesn't fight often. He's a part-time fighter. 2 years ago, and he's injury-prone. He's pulling out of fights left and right. 2.5 years ago, he fought Marc-Andre Barriault. 5 years ago, he fought Vitor Miranda. 6 years, nearly 7 years ago, he's fighting in World Series of Fighting. The dude has been very inactive, in the past 5 years. He's got 2 fights in the past 5 years. Sedriques Dumas, in the past 2 years, is making his whole run at a high level here. Now he's in the UFC. Yes, I'm picking Sedriques Dumas. He's longer. He's definitely the cleaner striker of the two. And I honestly think that Azaitar, because he's so inconsistent and the ring rust is going to be evident, gas tank is not there. He gasses in the third, and Dumas is ready for a good paced 3 rounds. He controls well with his kickbox on the outside, but he's comfortable on the inside too. He's deceptively strong with a bit of power. Azaitar is a wild looping puncher who gasses out in fights. I'm picking Dumas to win, and I'm going to call a submission. I say he'll sub Abu Azaitar. Now, it wouldn't be crazy if he knocks him out, but I have a feeling that Azaitar is going to end up getting his back taken, and he's going to end up getting strangled here. So I'm going Dumas by submission. He should get this thing. He should beat Mr. Inactivity Azaitar. Now, as far as the odds for it, Dumas is a slight favorite at -160. He opened even larger at -250. I was curious if he opened as a dog. +140 for Azaitar as the underdog. I don't think that Azaitar would be a good underdog bet. Like, I don't think he wins. He's so inactive. And it's like Dumas, at the very least, you can say, oh, he lost to Josh Fremd. Yeah, but he beat Cody Brundage. He's showing improvements in his game. He's getting better. He's only 28, and he's consistently fighting versus a guy 9 years older than him that in the past 5 years has fought 2 times. To me, it's Dumas all day. The more active fighter should win, the more, consistent improving skill set, as opposed to Azaitar, who might be 20% worse than when he fought Marc-Andre Barriault and got stopped last time out. And he looked sloppy in that fight. It's Dumas all day. Dumas by sub. Yeah, Dumas is going to strangle him. He might knock him out, but I'm going to call strangle, because we know Azaitar's gas tank is going to be shite in the later rounds. Second and third, he probably gasses. Next fight on the card, Javid Basharat and Victor Henry. I'm picking Javid Basharat here. This is like his coming out party type fight. They're turning up the competition just a bit, because Victor Henry is good. He beat Hayani Barcelos. Granted, I don't want to say it was a fluke win, but like if you look at the results afterwards, clean loss to a Sun Sao, and then he's barely getting by Tony Gravely in a competitive scrap where, he had good moments. And it's like Victor Henry is pretty slick with his stand-up. He's got good reflexes. I just think Javid Basharat controls distance way better than him. He is the better technical kickboxer, and he's also going to be physically stronger, and I think he's got the wrestling advantage. I see if somebody's on top here, it's going to be Basharat on top of Victor Henry. Now, Basharat's a very calculated and controlled fighter. I don't think he goes crazy looking for a finish, and then he wouldn't put himself in a bad spot, not overshooting for a finish, which is a good strategy. Basharat brothers, both of them, they fight very intelligently. They're intellectual fighters, well-rounded, extreme couture prospects that can kickbox really well, can wrestle really well, and can control pace well, and got good gas tanks. I think this is a clean win for Basharat. He's going to move to 15-0. In this fight here. I like the well-rounded skill set. I like his game. He's going to kickbox him up from the outside, and if they go to the ground, it's going to be Basharat in top position. I'm going Basharat for the win. I think both the Basharat brothers, Javid and Farid, have bright futures in the sport, and he's only 28. He's going to take out Victor Henry. 36, Victor Henry's a ton of high-level, or a ton of fight experience. I want to say high-level. That Hayani Barcelos win is great. It's an awesome win to have. But at the end of the day, I think Javid Basharat is the prospect to watch, and I'm picking him to beat Victor Henry in this fight. Now, Betting wides, because Basharat has a lot of steam, on the train. The hype train is real. He's a minus 450 favorite, which I think is a little wide. I'd like to see it more like minus 250, to be honest. But it is what it is. We had at open a minus 350 tag, but we had it swell to minus 600. So he's a big favorite throughout the week. He's going to remain a big favorite. 450 fave. It is what it is. Victor Henry's a plus 350 dog. Henry's going to fight hard, and I think they do a 3-round battle, and I think there's some moments for Henry, but majority of the fight is going to be Basharat. I see him outstriking, out-grappling, out-wrestling, outworking Victor Henry. Give me Javid Basharat by a decision. This is a step up, though. He fought Mateus Mendoza last fight, Tony Gravely before that, Trevin Jones, who he beat, and then he fought on Contender Series. So, I mean, this is like the right way to build somebody. Javid Basharat now getting the nod turn just a little bit up. Consistently, right? He goes high level, starts it off with Trevin Jones, who's pretty decent. Tony Gravely's pretty decent, kind of a step down with Mendoza, who's a good athlete, but overall, turned out to not be that great, getting ran over by Nate Maines, just hunting for legs like a wild man. And I think that Javid Basharat is going to beat Victor Henry, and I think he's got a bright future in the game. Basharat for the win in this fight. I believe in the prospect. Both of the brothers. Next fight on the card, it's Mohammad Yahya versus Trevor Peek in what I will say is going to be an absolute barn burner of a fight, and I'm picking Trevor Peek to win this thing. We got near even odds for the fight, and I expect them to kind of flip-flop back and forth. The reason I'm picking Trevor Peek is the swanging and banging street fighting style I think matches up well with Yahya, who's kind of like the more traditionalist, upright kickboxing style, who throws good straight punches, but doesn't have a great grappling game, and I think is going to struggle with the explosiveness and physical strength of Trevor Peek, and also the wild style. Sometimes the best way to beat technical fighters is by doing the complete opposite, being a wild maniac, and Trevor Peek is damn good at that, and the dude has zero quit in him. Now, he lost to Chepe Mariscal last time out. Mariscal's got the wrestling edge. We don't have that with Yahya. At the end of the day, I think Trevor Peek by knockout is very live here. Yahya got dropped in his last fight by a looping punch. I think Trevor Peek is going to put his lights out with some looping punches. So I am going to go Trevor Peek, and I'm going to pick him by KO. Odds for the fight are going to vary a bit, but we have around, minus 135 for Peek at some spots. Other spots have him at plus 145. So essentially, we got an even money fight between these two guys. Somehow he opened as a plus 330 underdog. That's crazy to now see it flip like this. Yahya's a plus 115 dog at some spots. I think Trevor Peek is getting the win. I think he's getting the knockout. I would have much rather had Trevor Peek as a plus 300 underdog as opposed to, throwing him down at a minus 120, minus 115 favorite. But regardless, I got to go with what I feel. I'm going with the pick that I think hits. I'm going Trevor Peek by a knockout. He's sleeping the kickboxer Yahya in what should be a pretty action-packed fight. I'm going with Tennessee, baby. I'm going with Chattanooga. Granted, it's saying he's fighting out of Alabama, but I know he trains with the boys over in Tennessee, so I think that's a mismark. Trevor Peek for the win. I think he can knock out Mohammad Yahya and get a win for the USA over, in Abu Dhabi, which would be pretty sick. Trevor Peek for the W. Next fight on the card is our featured prelim of the night. It's Tim Elliott versus Mohammad Mokaev. Guys, I really feel like Mohammad Mokaev is going to get a decision here. But, I would be lying to you if there aren't some relative concerns because Tim Elliott is so veteran savvy and let's just say he can bend the rules slightly. Grabbing the glove, at times he'll grab the cage. The guy's got veteran savvy tricks. He's an unorthodox striker who's also a good wrestler. Now, Mohammad Mokaev is a freak athlete. He was 23-0 in amateur MMA. He's now 9-0 in professional MMA. He's unbeaten in the UFC. The dude has zero quit in him. He let his leg get destroyed by Jafiel Filo and then ended up finishing him. So that was pretty damn impressive. Elliott doesn't have the offensive submission threat for Mokaev, so I don't see him subbing him, so I think Mokaev is not worried on the ground. In the striking department, Tim Elliott is not a big puncher, so I don't think there's a knockout threat. So I see a decision. I think Mokaev controls a lot of this fight, and I think he outworks Tim Elliott for 3 rounds, and he gets a unanimous decision. I'm going Mohammad Mokaev to win this fight. And the odds suck. He is a 6-1 favorite, minus 600 for Mokaev. Tim Elliott, a plus 425 underdog. Holy shit. Yeah, he opened at minus 500. No surprise at the odds here, though, because Mokaev, he's that dog prospect on the come up that everybody thinks is a future flyweight champ. And I mean, judging by how he's done so far and the mental state to not tap out from leg getting snapped, the dude's a freak. And I don't think Tim Elliott offers any potential finishing ability. So we'd have to outwork Mokaev for 3 rounds, which I do think is hard to do. I think Mokaev is winning the biggest fight of his life and taking out Tim Elliott, which is a huge win. Tim is 4-1 in his last 5 with the lone loss to Matthias Nicolau, who's a good prospect. If you beat a Tim Elliott, you are now in the upper echelon of flyweight. So after this fight for Mokaev, expect the notch of competition level to consistently soar upwards. So I'm going Mokaev for the win. I think he's getting it done. I'm going to say unanimous decision. He beats the OG Tim Elliott, who's coming off of a nice win over Victor Altamirano, kind of controversial win over Tagir Ulanbekov, where, he bent some rules a little bit. Yeah, I think Mokaev can get it done. Mokaev by submission's not crazy either. I'm curious what that prop is going to drop at, as I could see him locking up a guillotine or a darce or even a rear naked choke with Tim Elliott, but probably Mokaev on the judges' scorecards. We're going Mokaev to win. Next fight on the card brings us to our main card. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Said Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafurov. I'm picking the side of Said Nurmagomedov, and you know what? His loss to Jonathan Martinez aged really well because, it wasn't an absolute beatdown. It was a somewhat competitive fight, and look what Martinez just did to Adrian Yanez on Saturday. So for me, I'm not losing confidence in Said as a real good prospect after losing to a solid guy in Jonathan Martinez. Nurmagomedov's stand-up game is very good. He moves incredibly well. He's a good striker from the outside. He's got nasty kicks, has the wrestling base, but definitely more of a striker. Is dangerous from the front headlock position. He's got good strangles from there. And on the side of Muin Gafurov, I'd call him a sloppy striker. He's very pressure-based, and he throws a lot of looping punches, obviously looking to close that gap, clinch up with opponents, take them to the ground. I don't think he takes down Nurmagomedov easily here. And I think that there's a real chance that Nurmagomedov grabs a neck in this fight. I'm thinking submission or decision for Nurmagomedov. Originally, I was thinking decision, but as I'm talking about it now, as I'm thinking of the style that gets reckless for Muin Gafurov, I kind of see him getting caught in a guillotine or even a darce choke. I think Nurmagomedov by submission makes a ton of sense here. I'll say Nurmagomedov by submission, but I think decision or submission, both are very likely methods of victory here. Said Nurmagomedov, at the end of the day, is going to be the winner. He is clearly the better fighter. Muin Gafurov had a scrap with John Castaneda that he definitely lost, and he ended up on his back a bit in that fight. And you look, then you fought Chad and Helliger, lost there. He's taken a fight against a guy that's better than anyone he's fought inside of the UFC or Contender Series. The arguable best opponent Gafurov ever faced was John Lineker, who he did go distance with, but Lineker doesn't offer the submission threat like a Said Nurmagomedov does. I think Said Nurmagomedov's getting it done, guys. Should be a clean win for him. He's a good striker. I think he outstrikes Gafurov, threatens with subs. I think he locks up a sub, but wouldn't be crazy if we went all 3 rounds here. Said Nurmagomedov is a minus 240 favorite, actually, for how I see this matchup. I don't think it's a terrible line. Plus 205 underdog Gafurov. The OV versus OV, you got to go Nurmagomedov in this one. I'm picking him to win it. Nurmagomedov to beat Muin Gafurov. I just think he's levels above. I think this is a big step down in competition for Nurmagomedov, and this is a giant leap up in competition for Muin Gafurov, one that he will not be ready for. So we're going Nurmagomedov to win. Next fight on the card, it's Ikram Aliskerov versus Warley Alvarez. Warley Alves. If his last name was Alvarez, I don't know. I might be picking him with a puncher's chance if he had a little Eddie Alvarez pop in his hands. But Warley Alves, his best aspect of his game is going to be if he unloads some grappling onslaught or if he goes crazy with kicks. He's got decent Muay Thai striking, but he's limited. He's a real welterweight, jumping up to 185 pounds to fight Ikram Aliskerov. The pick is Aliskerov all day. It was supposed to be Nasruddin Imavov and Ikram Aliskerov, which I thought was a sick fight between two dangerous guys at middleweight. Now we have a squash match. It's about not if, it's about how. I think Aliskerov's boxing looked pretty good with Phil Hawes. He can crack from the outside. Granted, Phil Hawes is like quite a bit chinny, so we might be oversold on Aliskerov's knockout power. But because he has the Sambo background, the very good wrestling base, I honestly think he dictates every aspect of this fight, and I think he can knock Alves out. Aliskerov by KO is live. I think Aliskerov by submission wouldn't be crazy, right? If he's just beating on him, he's got a good amount of subs. He's Mr. Kimura. It'd be dope for him to submit a guy like Warley Alves, who I respect as far as his grappling game goes. And he's a decent welterweight, but come on, man. Competitive loss to Nicholas Dalby. Jeremiah Wells killed him. Win over Munir Lazez, which was kind of just a crazy kick onslaught almost 3 years ago. And then Randy Brown submitted him. This is one-way traffic. Aliskerov's going to run him out the room, man. This is going to be a beatdown. I'm going to say Aliskerov by KO, but don't be surprised when he gets a sub. It's Aliskerov inside distance, most confident. Minus 435 for Aliskerov. Can we get a break with these fucking terrible lines? Under 1.5, minus 165. Probably going under. Warley Alves, plus 335. Alves is a welterweight jumping up to take on one of the most dangerous middleweight prospects on the come up right now, and this is going to be a beating. So I'm going Aliskerov. I'm going to call it KO officially, but a sub's not crazy here. Aliskerov's going to run him over, guys. Come on. He beat up Phil Hawes last time. Mario Souza win. We ran over him on the Contender Series. Aliskerov's that dude. He's supposed to be fighting Nasruddin Imavov, who's in the top 15. And now he's fighting a welterweight who, has a great win over Colby Covington a really long time ago. But outside of that, he's an okay fighter. Aliskerov's going to crush him. One-way traffic. The only loss for Aliskerov, 2 on the record, is to Khamzat Chimaev. So, this is a beating. Aliskerov for the win. Next fight on the card, it is our featured bout. It's Magomedov and Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. This pick makes me sad. Okay, I'll tell you guys straight up. I'm disappointed about who I'm picking here. I'm picking Magomedov Ankalaev. Fuck, I wish I wasn't. I really like Johnny Walker. I consider myself a Johnny Walker fan. I am hoping Johnny Walker lands the fly knee and gets a knockout. Because as a fan, that's who I'm rooting for. But when I'm breaking this thing down, doing a prediction, I got to tell you who I think is actually going to win. Not just give you the fan-sided pick and the what if. There's a what if that Johnny Walker knocks him out with something crazy early. But really, Magomedov Ankalaev can control the pace of the fight. He can close the gap. He can take down Johnny Walker, beat him up from top position. Magomedov Ankalaev is too technically superior. As good as Johnny Walker is, and I really think he's come into his own, and this is the best version of him, Magomedov Ankalaev might be the best 205er in the world. Very strong argument that the Jan Blachowicz fight could have went his way. Obviously, he was getting ripped up with some kicks by Jan, but I don't think that we can write Ankalaev off. With a dominant win here, if he beats Johnny Walker, it's hard to deny him as far as the upper echelon of the division. Like, he's probably going to be in the waiting for a title shot because obviously Jamal Hill will be next in line after Prohashka and Pereira determine who the next champion will be. But Ankalaev is right on their ankles, and he's so technically good. It's like the way you beat Ankalaev, you kind of got to get a fluke, like Paul Craig, fluke triangle at the end of the fight. I don't think Johnny Walker has a high likelihood of a fluke in this one because Ankalaev minds his P's and Q's pretty damn well on the feet. Not saying there won't be moments for Walker, but still I think Ankalaev beats him for the most part. I'm going Ankalaev. I will say unanimous decision. I don't think Johnny's getting finished. I think Ankalaev's on top of him at some point in this fight and throws a bit of ground and pound, but I'm telling you, it's like a safety-first, dominant game plan, unanimous decision, Magomedov Ankalaev, but as a fan, I will be hoping that Johnny Walker catches him with a jump knee. And I know a lot of people that are going to be throwing Ankalaev in the parlays are going to be like, fuck you for saying that. But at the end of the day, the fan side of me really wants a Johnny Walker title fight versus Alex Pereira. I think that would be absolutely crazy. That would be sick. I'd watch him versus Yuri Prohashka too. But really, it should be Ankalaev dominating. I mean, Ankalaev could finish. Like, I don't think of Ankalaev as a great finisher, and obviously you can see why. 3 of his last 4 wins are all decisions. He TKO'd a, beaten up and injured Anthony Smith. Johnny Walker just got a unanimous decision over Anthony Smith. Prior to that, he beat Paul Craig with hammer fist, which, fair win in that one. That was pretty dope. Strangled Kutelaba. Ankalaev's too technically good. Ankalaev for the W. The odds here is minus 360 for Ankalaev. Johnny Walker at plus 285. Yeah, give me Magomed Ankalaev for the win. I think that he pulls it off, and I'll say it's a unanimous decision for him. He's a minus 360 favorite, though, plus 285 dog, Johnny Walker. Love me some Johnny Walker, guys. And I know that a lot of you probably feel exactly what I'm saying, but damn, Ankalaev's technically too good. Ankalaev the pick, unfortunately. Co-main event of the evening, we have Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. Guys, I guess not many years ago, but some years ago, when Khamzat first entered the UFC, I told everybody I think this is the next guy in the come-up. And I felt that he would be the man to dethrone Kamaru Usman. Obviously, timeline didn't work out that way. Leon Edwards ends up dethroning Kamaru Usman. Leon and Khamzat were supposed to fight. Obviously, that matchup didn't happen. And now Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman is happening at 185 in Abu Dhabi on 10 days' notice. Not optimal for Kamaru. Yes, you guys know I'm picking Khamzat Chimaev. But I don't think that we see a bad version of Kamaru Usman. I feel like we are going to see a healthier Kamaru Usman at 185. Even maybe a better Kamaru Usman, at least than what we saw last time against Leon Edwards. Dig back to the second fight versus Leon. Kamaru Usman's winning the whole thing. So it's not like Usman is washed. It's not over for him yet. And moving up to 185 is going to give him, I think, a handful more fights to be competitive at the top without this draining weight cut. But Khamzat Chimaev is that guy. I think Khamzat's going to take Kamaru Usman down and beat him up from top. There's a chance that Kamaru Usman is a fucking dead man when they're on the floor. Khamzat throwing ferocious ground and pound and potentially submitting him. On the feet, Khamzat Chimaev is the faster striker. I also think at 185, he lands the more precise punches and could put Usman's lights out. It's just Usman is historically tough. Method of victory in this fight for me is something I've been struggling with more than anything else. I knew out the gate Khamzat Chimaev was going to be my call. I feel like there is a real chance that Khamzat gets a finish here. I think he might get a submission of Kamaru Usman. But could you imagine he chinned him on the feet? It wouldn't be crazy if he knocked him out with punches. But granted, a 185 Usman, we already know he's got a steel chin. It could be even better. Khamzat to win the fight. That's the straight call. Khamzat to win. I was kind of feeling like he might get a decision, but Khamzat's style, and now you're bringing it in Abu Dhabi. I think he's coming out to kill Kamaru Usman, and if he can get Usman on his back, get some ground and pound going, I could see him taking his back and strangling him. I'm going to say Khamzat Chimaev by submission, but the method of victory, it's not something I'm overly crazy about. I'm curious to see what all the props look like, what plus money we get for knockout, what plus money we get for decision, and what plus money for submission here. But the pick is Khamzat Chimaev. I'm picking Khamzat. He's a minus 270 favorite. At open, he was minus 300, so the odds have gotten a little better. I like Khamzat a lot this week, guys. I do. A lot this week. Khamzat Chimaev minus 270. Kamaru Usman plus 230. What do we got? An over 2.5 is plus 145. It wouldn't be crazy, though, if Usman goes the distance with Khamzat. But I have this weird feeling of a submission. I think that if he gets Usman's back, Usman is fucked. Khamzat ferociously throwing ground and pound, beating him up, and then maybe locking something up under the neck. Khamzat Chimaev's the call, and he's a confident pick, guys. I think Khamzat's destiny was always to beat Kamaru Usman, and now we're doing it at 185 with a middleweight title shot on the line. I'm ecstatic for Saturday. I like Khamzat versus Usman way more than Khamzat versus Paulo Costa, because this is the matchup I always wanted to see. Kevin Holland, submission. Gilbert Burns, decision. That Gilbert Burns fight was damn competitive, but note something. That was at 170. And also the fact Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu threat was significant, and Khamzat had to worry about potentially getting locked in something from top position. There is not that type of threat with Kamaru Usman's grappling. Usman is great from top. He's great in the clinch. He's good with the boxing, but by no means is he threatening opponents with his jiu-jitsu off the back for the most part. And he's on a 2-fight losing streak to Leon Edwards. I'm picking Khamzat Chimaev for the win, guys. I think he's getting the win and the title fight and the title because he's probably going to out-wrestle Sean Strickland. They've said the winner of this fight fights for the belt. And Usman with the win over Sean Strickland some years ago. So this is a very appealing matchup with a ton on the line. Cannot wait for this co-main event. Holy hell, it's a great fight. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, Make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski 2. Yes, Volkanovski took this fight on 10 days' notice, replacing Charles Oliveira. Some balls on the guy, the biggest balls in the game, and he dares to be great unlike anybody else. Guys, my pick in this fight is going to be Alexander Volkanovski to pull off an upset. I know some of you will say, what? He's taking the fight on 10 days' notice. He's got no chance. He won't be ready. If there's anybody that's in shape all year, specifically in shape to go 5 rounds up a weight class where he's not going to have to drain himself out to get to 145, Volkanovski. Volkanovski for sure. Look at this matchup. He fought Islam before, and he found out a ton about his game. So I think in this matchup here, Volkanovski comes in more confident. I can survive this man's grappling onslaught. I can match him in the striking. But Volkanovski's stand-up against Yair Rodriguez, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. It looked better than before. Volkanovski's boxing looked meaner than ever. Volkanovski looked slicker than ever before. And his wrestling is also very on point. He was beating up Makhachev at the end of the 5th round. And, you know, we've heard the argument. We've heard people talk about it. If he threw the 2 in the forest, Volkanovski's the one coming out alive. And I think this fight here, regardless of the short notice, Alexander Volkanovski's taking it because he believes he can win. He's looking at a matchup that if he had not taken this on 10 days' notice, who knows if we ever had this fight happen again, because he's supposed to fight Elliott in January. Still tentatively booked for that fight, depending on how this fight goes. Islam Makhachev was supposed to fight Charles Oliveira. Who knows if then they would have gave him Justin Gaethje. There could have been so many leaps to jump through, so many hurdles to get over. And Alexander Volkanovski chose, yo, I'm stepping in. I'm taking this fight. Let's make it happen. And he's going to win it. I think he can stop Islam Makhachev in the 4th round by knockout. I'm going the Mystic Mac call. I'm going Volkanovski. I'm thinking he's getting a finish. Now, could it go 5? Sure. Could it be a back and forth scrap that Volk edges out in the cards? Absolutely. But I think Volkanovski's going to hurt Makhachev on the feet and knock him out. I think he's going to look better than ever before. This short notice, it's going to be the best thing for Volkanovski. It's going to like cause him to go in there without even a thought, without an overthought. And remember something. This is also short notice for Islam Makhachev. Oh, but he had a full camp. Sure, yes, that's true. But he was preparing for Charles Oliveira, who has a completely different frame and a completely different style than Alexander Volkanovski. This is a massive switch up. Now, granted, yes, Islam Makhachev fought Volkanovski before, and look how that fight ended. It ended with Makhachev bruised up, beaten, and getting pounded on from Volkanovski in the 5th round. Makhachev's a tremendous fighter, as is Alexander Volkanovski. This is the battle for pound supremacy. I know John Jones owns the spot now, whatever. But if Volkanovski wins this fight over Makhachev, he should be the #1 pound for pound, no doubt about it. He'll be a dual champion, and he'll have beaten Islam Makhachev, who looks like the boogeyman. The only time Makhachev looked human, aside from Adriano Martins catching him a really long time ago with a fluke punch, was with Alexander Volkanovski last time. And that was Makhachev's last fight 7 months ago. Volkanovski, since then, he fine-tuned some things. He got an impressive dominant win over Yair Rodriguez. He destroyed Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski's my pick in this fight. I think he's dethroning Islam Makhachev. He was damn close last time, and I think he learned a ton from that fight, and he's going to come back better. I think we're getting the best version of Volkanovski ever here. Trains with Craig Jones, Mr. Jiu-Jitsu, who says Sambo's a myth. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think Sambo's a myth. I think these Sambo guys are absolute killers. But the confidence in the Volkanovski camp is through the roof right now. I think he's prepared for this fight. I think he's going to match Makhachev in the grappling, exceed him in the stand-up, and I think he's stopping him. I'm going Volkanovski by knockout. Upset, plus 215 for Alexander Volkanovski. Makhachev, the minus 255 favorite. Maybe I'm a wild man. Maybe I'm insane. Maybe. Under 4.5, plus 152. Interesting. The books think we're going 5, and we definitely could go 5. But I'm seeing Volkanovski's hands being the ultimate difference maker, and I think he can close the gap on Makhachev and hurt him. Follow up ground and pound and stop him. Regardless of Volk coming in on short notice, I'm telling you, he's ready for a 5-round high-paced war, and I'm picking him to beat Islam Makhachev. Give me Alexander Volkanovski and new and double champ, and I think GOAT status potentially with this one. A damn close to GOAT status. Definitely. Pound for pound, #1. Volkanovski for the W. That's my pick in the main event. Against the grain, maybe. But this is how I felt since the fight got announced. I think Volk can do this thing. Alexander Volkanovski to win. That is UFC 294. I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the picks. I'm curious what you guys are thinking. Drop some of your favorite picks on the card. Let me know also, am I insane for going Volkanovski in the main? I want to hear what the people got to say, whether positive or negative. You guys know I'm here for everything. Much love, my people. If you got nothing to say in the comments too, but you just enjoy the content, as always, drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. I got mad love for each and every one of you. Make sure you guys run the likes up. So smash that like button. If you're new, subscribe and turn the post notifications on. Don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all so you don't miss a video, because I got daily content dropping, and it is a packed content schedule for UFC 294. And I can't wait for an epic week's worth of content, and then capping it off with a fight companion that's going to be absolute madness. Thank you guys for tuning in. Much love to each and every one of you, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, everybody.